يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. All gratitude belongs to Allah. We thank Him, we seek His help, we seek His forgiveness. Whoever Allah guides, none can lead astray, and whoever is led astray, none can guide but Allah. I testify that there is none worthy of my worship, my sacrifice, my obedience, my ultimate allegiance and support except Allah, and that Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, was his last and his final messenger, the greatest teacher ever sent, the greatest builder ever sent, the man who inspired a nation, the most humble on this earth, the most merciful on this earth, the connector of people, not the one who divided them into factions. Allah reminds us in the Quran, believers, be conscious of Allah as He deserves, and do not die except upon submission to Him. Over the last week or so, I'm sure all of us have been seeing videos of thousands of people walking upon the beach of Gaza, returning to the rubble of their homes, returning to a completely destroyed Gaza Strip. And as we saw those scenes, one of the thoughts that cropped up to my mind is, what is going to happen? How do you rebuild a society from scratch when all the infrastructure has been destroyed? When all the infrastructure has been destroyed, but the people remain standing. And this reminded me of a similar moment, the moment in which the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ arrived at Medina in order to finally build a society, to build a civilization based upon revelation. And it's almost as though if you were given a blank canvas, what are the institutions that you would invest in if you had to build a society, a community from scratch? These, I believe, are the strategic institutions that the Prophet ﷺ invested in to build Medina. And Medina became the model for the rest of humanity, for the rest of this ummah. One of the challenges that every minority Muslim community has in the West is that 90% of our funds, of the roughly 300 million Canadian dollars raised every year, 90% of these funds go for foreign humanitarian relief causes, while the local institutions suffer. If we revisited Medina, there are 3 institutions that the Prophet ﷺ invested in to build a flourishing Muslim community. What are these institutions? The first thing, when the Prophet ﷺ arrived in Medina, remember, he was taking a whole group of immigrants from Mecca to Medina. They don't have family, they don't have welfare, they don't have council or government housing. They're coming here, they have nothing. They've left their family behind, their professions behind, their trade, their wealth. They've left everything behind to come to Medina in order to rebuild a new society based on the principles of La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And the first institution that the Prophet ﷺ builds is what he calls the institution of al-ikha, of brotherhood and sisterhood. He pairs one of the immigrant Muslims, the Muhajirin, with one of the Ansar, and he says, you guys are a pair, you two are a pair, you two are a pair, and as a pair, the resident in Medina should be ready to share everything he or she owns with his pair. Salman al-Farisi with Abu Darda, this Sahabi with that Sahabi. And it was to the extent when Abdul Rahman ibn Auf radiallahu anhu migrated from Mecca to Medina, and the Prophet paired him with one of the Ansaris, one of the residents of Medina. His pair said to him, listen, I have 4 wives, I'm ready to divorce 2 of them, you can have them. This is my house, I'm willing to break it in half, you have half of it. This is my wealth, here, have half of my wealth. This was the extent to which they were willing to support the Muslims who were coming in with nothing and starting from scratch. Before the Prophet built the masjid, before the Prophet built anything else in Medina, the first thing he built was unity and brotherhood and sisterhood, close ties, a welfare system that wasn't relying on the state, but relying on each other, supporting each other. He created a system of welfare through ukhuwah, not welfare through the state. And so what happened? Abdul Rahman ibn Awf radiallahu anhu said to his companion, I don't need your wealth, just point me to the market. But this was the cushion, this was the brickwork, the foundations that created a society built on La ilaha illallah. You see, before the Prophet created the institution of brotherhood-based welfare, on what basis were people united? They were united based on ethnicity and tribe. In fact, one day in Medina, there was a fight between one of the Ansar and one of the Muhajirin. There was a physical fight, an altercation. And the man from the Ansar went and started screaming, Ya lil Ansar. And the man from the Muhajirun, the immigrants from Mecca, started screaming, Ya lil Muhajirin. Now see, the identities changed. They're no longer identifying with Islam. What are they identifying with? Their ethnic, tribal background. And so they start fighting. And the Prophet ﷺ intervened in this fight. And he said, Utrukuha فَإِنَّهَا نَتِنَا. You know these terms, these identities, these labels that you guys prefer? That I'm Sudani and I'm Libyan. I want to help the Libyans. I'm Sudani, I'll help the Sudanese. I'm Indian, I'll help the Indians. I'm Somali, I'll help the Somalis. These ethnic identities that you hold so dear to your heart, you only socialize with your own. The Prophet said, leave these labels because they are filthy labels. Embrace each other. Embrace each other upon La ilaha illallah. Should it matter what ethnicity your neighbor is? Should it matter what ethnicity your brother is? If they say La ilaha illallah, you should be willing to give everything to them. You should be willing to be hungry tonight so they can eat. This spirit and this culture was created by the Prophet ﷺ, which is why he didn't need welfare. Today, what happens in socialist states? Somebody loses the job, somebody's hungry, immediately they rely on the state for welfare, they rely on the state for income, they rely on the state to provide them housing. And so what happens? We stop supporting each other because everybody is relying on the state. And our brotherhood weakens, our sisterhood weakens. We become individualistic. Nobody cares about their neighbor. Nobody's checking up on their friend. Nobody's saying, somebody just moved to the city. Are they okay? Do they need help? How can I help you? We've lost the spirit of khidmah, of service, of brotherhood, of sisterhood. And we have become mired in our tribalism, in our ethnicity. A lot of masajid are ethnic clubs. People know this is the masjid for that ethnicity. This is the masjid for that ethnicity. Alhamdulillah, this is not one of those masjids, but there are masjids like that. They have become ethnic clubs. And we have lost the spirit of brotherhood. This is the first institution that the Prophet ﷺ invested in. He built, he taught, and he paired people together so that the Muslims who are in Medina, to create this new model of society, you cannot create it from people who are tied to their ethnicity, tied to their tribe, tied to their language, to their postcode, to where they live. No, they have to be tied to La ilaha illallah and brotherhood based on La ilaha illallah. Imagine if Masjid Abu Huraira had a campaign called the Ukhuwa campaign, and anybody who is newly moving into this area, that the masjid would pair them with somebody who's already living here, to provide them with support. Imagine anybody who loses their job from this community, that the masjid pairs them with somebody from the same profession to help them find a job. Imagine somebody who loses their housing or can't pay rent, the masjid pairs them with somebody who can pay them zakah. Imagine if the masjid could be the center of the institution of ukhuwah, of brotherhood between us. This is the first institution the Prophet built.